Hello and welcome to Learning Rewired, the podcast brought to you by Headspring. If you're not familiar with Headspring, we are the learning and development arm of the Financial Times in partnership with IE Business School. Here we cover the evolving landscape of work, leadership, learning and development, business transformation, and everything that is happening in this changing world. I'm Thiago Kivi, and today I'm excited to be joined by Vlatka Hlupic. Vlatka is an associate professor here at Headspring and a renowned global thought leader who has spent over 25 years advising world leaders and organizations on how to transform leadership and drive meaningful change. Vlatka, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.
I'd like to jump straight in. Of course, we're talking about business transformation, leadership transformation, and the world is constantly in transformation, right? Why is it so hard to get transformation and business change right?
For various reasons, and I've done some research around that actually, and some of the reasons include the fact that sometimes leaders are not ready, or employees maybe are not ready, or it seems to be too hard, and we get all these different information from there is a 60% failure rate of change programs, there is 55 or 70% failure rate of change programs. So many programs do fail because there is a lack of proper buy-in, a lack of proper communication, lack of proper planning, and often we resist change because we know from research that when we are facing change, the part of our brain just lights up, which is related to stress and anxiety. But if we can see the big picture and if there is a proper communication why this change is needed, what will happen, the pain from not changing versus the gain from changing, and then when we get everybody on board to do it and know how to do it, then it works, it's successful, and it brings amazing results.
Hmm. Hmm. And what would be the first step, really, for businesses out there? Imagine me if I'm leading an organization and my business really is going through a lot of change. I have new entrants in the competition landscape, and I just decide that I need to change. I might be a traditional bank, and I decide that I want to become a new bank, a digital bank, right? Where do I even start?
We
Yeah.
would start with leaders first. It has to start top down and then bottom up as well. And it's first about learning how to change and which approach, which methodology to use. The essence is the 5 level management shift model, which I
Mm-hmm.
developed based on many years of my interdisciplinary research. And based on that, I then developed assessment tools, e learning platforms, various programs, and processes, the know how for change for individuals to change their mindset, their drive, even levels of consciousness. And then there are other tools and processes then I developed to do it at the whole organizational level.
Mm-hmm.
There are 5 levels that our individual mindset goes through, and there is a corresponding organizational culture at every level. And every level is characterized by specific thinking patterns, emotions, energy, leadership behavior, a language used, and organizational outcomes. We can't skip the levels. We can only go up one level at a time, but we can have pockets of different levels within the same organization. So, if I were to describe levels briefly, level 1 is lifeless mindset, apathetic culture, not much gets done. There's lots of fear, blame, worry, toxic culture, yelling leaders. This is where people get unhealthy. In some cases, people that just have to leave. We saw a few years ago a case of French telecom company, 19 people committed suicide because of a toxic leadership culture, which is aligned with research conducted by Professor Jeffrey Pfeffer from Stanford, saying that bad leadership kills people, and sharing various statistics, how many people die per year because of work-induced stress. So that is level 1, really could be lethal, unhealthy place. And then we go to level 2. At level 2, we have a reluctant mindset and stagnating culture. This is where people do a bare minimum just to be paid. So they bring their body to work, but their heart and mind stay somewhere else. They dream about being anywhere else but at work.
Mm.
They take long lunch break, they sneak out for a workout. They would rather do anywhere anything else but work. And I'm sure as I describe levels, you and the listeners will start thinking about different examples. If I were to give you example of level 2, the great example would be TV series Office with Ricky Gervais. And there is
Yeah.
a brilliant clip on YouTube called Appraisal, which is a typical example of level 2 employee and leader. You can see body language, the energy level. It's brilliant. So that's level 2. And then we move to level 3. At level 3, we have control mindset, orderly culture. At level 3, we tick the boxes, we achieve KPIs, we are micromanaged, we are told what to do by our bosses. Often we are led by big leaders with big egos at level 3. And because majority of organizations operate those levels, mainly around level 3, with some elements of lower levels, this is the key reasons why we see low levels of engagement, lack of productivity, lack of passion for work, lack of purpose, which has direct impact on bottom line profit. So we need to help leaders, leadership teams, and entire organizations to shift from level 3 to level 4.
Mm-hmm.
Something magic happens when leaders, employees, and the whole culture gets to level 4.
Mm.
At level 4, the mindset is enthusiastic, culture is collaborative. And the keywords are trust, transparency, purpose, collaboration, having fun working on something bigger than ourselves. Then we see a step change increase in productivity, in engagement, in innovation, and bottom line profit.
Mm.
We know, for example, from research that highly engaged employees they achieve 20% more productivity or 21% more revenues, which then impacts profit directly. So this is the place to be. And then occasionally we can reach level 5 with limitless mindset and abounding culture. This is where highly innovative teams work day and night on some big innovations for humanity. They achieve what was thought to be impossible to achieve before. So they reach for the stars. They're driven by love for humanity. They want to solve big problems at the global level, like pandemic, pollution, recession, and so
Yeah.
on.
Mm-hmm.
So example could be Google X Lab working day and night until they invented driverless cars, or Steve Jobs' team working day and night in the 80s in circus tent until they invented Macintosh computer, for example. So
Mm-hmm.
the objective is be anchor level 4 and occasionally go to level 5 when we have to be very innovative and creative. Sometimes we need some elements of level 3 only for safety, compliance, security purposes,
Mm-hmm.
quality purposes. But the baseline should be level 4, and this is where everything changes. I've seen it for 15 years with many, many clients. I worked globally. I've seen it from other research studies done by other scholars. This is the where business should go to creating healthier, happier, more productive places that do good and do well at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's fascinating, actually, and I have a lot of questions based on just on these five levels. First, is it possible to be in the same or multiple levels at the same time?
We operate from the highest level where we are anchored. Let's assume we have done the
Mm.
work. So we need to do conscious work until level 4 becomes subconscious competence, until it becomes second nature, until it becomes habit. And I created processes to make this happen, which I use with my clients. Once we do the work, we anchor level 4, we can then slip down to any other level. So we have all levels inside us up to the highest level where we are.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, we can do contextual leadership as a leader. So, if I'm a leader, I'm at level 4, and I want to empower my employee at level 3, and then I do processes that needs to be done, strategies to empower somebody to take them to that journey to level 4.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm a leader level 4, and then I have an employee who is operating at level 2, who is doing a bare minimum, I need to get down to level 3 and micromanage them for a while from level 3 until they start performing better, and then they will be ready to go on this journey of empowerment to get to level 4. But they can't jump from level 2 to level 4. If you empower them and they're stuck at level 2, they will do even less.
Mm.
If you trust them and you give them responsibilities they're not ready to take.
And let's say, in an organization, we have a lot of, let's say, young people or people who are motivated to make an impact in the world, and they want to make change, and they want to drive, new things, create new products, new innovation, and so on. Let's say a level 5 kind of workforce. Let's imagine, but then the top level of the company, it's at perhaps level 3, more like big leadership, a little bit more authoritarian kind of style. At what level then will the organization end up working at? Can this be a bottoms up kind of change, or is it always top down?
It can be both.
Mm,
If we talk about top down change, it's important that top leaders are on board with this work for transformation
mm,
because organizational culture is a reflection of leaders' consciousness and their mindset.
mhm,
And if they are very, very much stuck at level 3, it will be difficult to change, but not impossible. Sometimes it can come from bottom up as well. I
mm,
can share example for my book Human Capital. I interviewed 58 CEOs globally, and I captured various stories and strategies, how they went about it. And one story that particularly struck me, which shows the power of employee at every level, it's a story about Celine Schillinger. She was working for a pharmaceutical company. She realized that the board is quite non-diverse. It was just middle-aged men on
mm,
board, and she wrote an email to CEO saying, "Dear CEO, the board is not diverse enough. Our clients are very diverse. We need to
mm,
do something about it." And Sia didn't pay attention first, but she sent the email to a colleague and then went viral, and the whole movement for change started. Within 6 months or so, the CEO had to start listening, and a lot of changes happened. And he created a special job just for her. And after a while, she became independent, and now she wrote the book on leadership,
mm,
and she initiated all these ripples of change. So each and every one of us are powerful enough with maybe one conversation, one email, or one article that we write or publish and or share opinion that we can start those ripples of change at every
mhm,
level. And
mhm.
eventually people at the top will have to start to listen.
Okay, okay. And my next question is more about the how then. So let's say you come into an organization, and what is the first thing that you do to understand at what level the organization is working on?
So first I would have some conversations with the board, with the CEO, with the key stakeholders just to understand what they're trying to achieve, just to get the sense. And then normally, although every project is bespoke that
Mm-hmm.
I do for every organization, depending on the size and what they're trying to achieve, where they are, where I think they are, where they should go, and where they want to
Mm-hmm.
go, and so
Mm-hmm.
on.
Mm-hmm.
So most of my projects are bespoke, but for a typical project, I would start with training leadership team for 4 months, and we would start with individual assessment for leaders. They will see exactly where they are on the scale of 1 to 5. It's all anonymous. They will get 26 pages report with detailed description of levels and so on. They will then get access to their e-learning platform with all the access to assessments, learning material that they need just to prepare for the workshop. Then I would do first workshop, normally live or on Zoom if client is abroad. So it's a half a day workshop only focused on individual transformation for leadership behavior, where I train leaders how to start showing up as level 4 leaders. And then there are different processes we set up in between two workshops. I can also see what is the profile of leadership team. So how many leaders are around level 3 or 4 or level
Mm-hmm.
2, and then we can put some processes in place. After that, they will start implementing level 4. They will do some peer coaching. They will be accountable to each other. And then they will complete organizational diagnostics based on my 6-box leadership model. So the organizational diagnostic, organizational health scan will measure hidden strengths and weaknesses in areas of culture. So we'll see what kind of culture organization has, relationships, how well people work together, individuals, their mindset, drive, motivation, strategy, how it gets developed and executed, systems, how the work gets done, and resources. So I call this organizational MRI because it shows what are the hidden parts of organizational body that need to be healed, because organizations have to be managed as living organisms, not as individual silos.
Mm-hmm.
So, and after that, we use action planning process I developed based on designing thinking, where we would prescribe the medicine, so to speak. So we would create a action plan with specific actions, and we know sometimes little changes, little actions can lead to big impact. So we will co-create this with various strategic input from me and various strategies provided on e-learning platform that teams can use. And then they will brainstorm around the results that they obtain to create the action plan. And then at the second stage, we could then do some training and do organization diagnostic for the rest of organization. And with the organization diagnostic, we could scan hundreds or thousands of people within 20 minutes anonymously in psychologically safe ways, so we can see what is really going on in organization, and then we can expand action planning to take into consideration the results for the rest of organization. Or we can split reports per managerial level or per department. It really depends from project to project.
If you look at level 4 and level 5, which are kind of the more ideal or the more visionary kind of leaders, what is the difference between those two levels? And for example, in when dealing with adversity, for example, if if let's say we have a big deadline today, a lot of things are still undone, clients are unhappy, what is the difference between a level 4 and a level 5 in these situations? How do they behave differently, and how do you identify the kind of distinction between those two?
So level 4 is a bit more pragmatic. So it is about liberating and getting away from these hierarchies and micromanagement, command control, which are stifling innovation, performance, engagement, and so on. So at level 4, we collaborate more, we are purposeful more, we have more fun working, we achieve more with less effort, everything improves. But also we are quite pragmatic, and sometimes if we have to make some decisions more quickly, sometimes we take some elements of level 3 temporarily. I'll give you an example. I work with a large global IT company in Asia Pacific area, and I train about 30 COOs in that area, and they gave me a story where they all learned the vocabulary and the levels. So now they can consciously go to a meeting and they would say, okay, for next 20 minutes, we need to be level 3 because we need to make some decisions very quickly. And then for the rest of the time, for the meeting, we will be level 4 or 5 because we have to think creatively, innovatively,
Right.
etc., etc. Coming back to original question, so yes, level 4, we are liberated, we achieve more with less effort. But level 5 goes a step further, where we really think outside the box, and this is really for innovation and creativity. We can't be there all the time, we would burn out. At level 5, normally, we see stories where highly innovative teams are taken away from organizational boundaries or offices. Like Steve Jobs took his engineers to circus tent to brainstorm until they invented a Macintosh computer. Lockheed Martin, they took engineers to the desert in the 60s, where they brainstormed day and night until they invented supersonic jets. So it's not the everyday work day for teams at level 5. This is like they would sleep there and think all the time when they're awake. So it's very, very different. And it's not sustainable for a long time. We would just burn out. So that's the
Hmm.
main difference.
Yeah. And to me, this just there's a lot in the media right now about different levels of or different styles of leadership. And there's been a lot of conversation as well about productivity, um, and about having I think a very famous CEO said the ideal or the sweet spot for productivity is 60 hours working week. Not sure if you saw that. And
Um,
to me, I find it depends, right? If you are 60 hours working on a project, just like you described, in the middle of the desert, or maybe in a circus tent where you're inventing the next big thing in the world, I think that is really interesting. But then, you have also people who have their lives, and perhaps they have to pick up kids from school, or they just perhaps not operating at the same level, and the two things are very different, right? You're
mhm,
talking about the same amount of hours dedicated to work, but not necessarily achieving the same outcome or with the same energy. How do you compare the two? Because obviously there's all over the world there's people who are working hours and hours and hours under very difficult circumstances, and perhaps not achieving the same as you say, this more ideological or idealistic kind of situations. So what is the difference, and what is the driver behind um, someone who kind of spends maybe a week working in a desert or in a circus tent to develop something, and someone else who's maybe forced to work in a circumstance that
it's a big difference.
yeah.
It's a big difference because when we operate from levels 4 and 5, work is not work, it becomes calling. We are really purposeful and we want to align our purpose
Mm,
with the purpose at work, with the purpose of organization we work for. We want to see what is the higher purpose of organization that we work for, and that gives us energy. And coming back to your example, 60 hours, if you work, I can guarantee you, and maybe we can do experiment. If you have level 3 carrot and stick management forcing you to work 60 hours a week, you would be less productive, certainly less engaged and energized than if you have 4 days a week working week
mhm,
at level 4, working for leader who operates from level 4 5, knowing that there is a higher purpose, that this organization is making this world a better place, and you feel that you are making contribution to this, and then the work is not work anymore, and you will happily do many more hours, but you will, in 4 days you will achieve more than
mhm,
somebody else working under level 3
mhm,
command and control for 60 hours.
mhm, mhm. And I think we all need to keep learning, transform, and so on. It's part of being human. For someone who achieved a lot already in their lives, to find or to hear that perhaps their style of leadership it's wrong, or not necessarily quite right, or perhaps operating at the wrong level, or not as high level as it should be. Where do you start with that then? And how do you drive the awareness?
That's a great question. And quite often people ask me, how do your clients find you? And my answer is through inspiration or desperation. So there
Mm,
are
mm,
inspirational CEOs that are open, they're already halfway there, maybe, or maybe they're even at level 4 there already, and they get it, they realize why it is important that they are there, and they want to bring the rest of the organization to level 4 firmly, and then tap into level 5 as
mm,
well, and they want everybody in organization to understand the levels, behaviors, language use, etc., etc. They will then go on this journey, because from level 4 culture we create happier, healthier workplaces, but also more profitable workplaces. So that is one category. Another category would be leaders, CEOs stuck at level 3, and they know unless they do something different, they will not survive as an organization. But they don't know what to do, where to start. And maybe they hear about my work or somebody recommends me, and then we start discussing
mm,
possibilities. And it's interesting, when I interviewed 58 CEOs for my book, Humane Capital, Majority of them said, if we did not go through this big transformational journey from level 3 to level 4 years ago, we would not have survived as an organization. We wouldn't be around anymore. So they have this awareness. And when I asked them question, what is the price tag? What is the value or the impact of this big transformational journey? Some of them started giving me some numbers like, oh, it's extra millions or billions of pounds or dollars or euros. Some said it increases the value of your company by 10%, or it increases the revenue by 15 to 25%. But some other CEOs told me it's priceless. It's a difference between mere existence and true happiness. It's a difference between life and death, because sometimes organizations will just not survive if they're still stuck at lower levels. So having this awareness is really, really important first step. And then intentions and willingness to do the work it takes to go for transformation. But what waits on the other side, it's worth doing it.
Yeah. So you get CEOs telling you that by changing the way people think or the way people behave, they see changing revenue, changing
Yes,
financials. Yeah.
yes,
Mm.
yes. But there are research studies available and published in Harvard
Yeah.
Business Review and various other places showing direct correlation between employee satisfaction, employee engagement, and direct correlation with increase in productivity and revenues and profit. And that is available. This data is available. So it's well known that engaged employees, they will go extra mile for customers. Happy customers will then bring repeated business, and everything improves. And I keep talking about these ripples of change. It starts with each and every individual, but it has to start with the leader as well.
Yeah.
And then everything improves.
Yeah. And that's my next question. We are now recording this interview in 2025. And this is a year where we're seeing some very interesting role models of leadership. Not the perhaps what you call an ideal role model leadership, but very high profile leadership profiles in the media every day, doing a lot of different things. Particularly looking at efficiency, looking at things like performance. But there, what we see, it's perhaps we moving a little bit backwards in the way we do things. Do you fear that there will be maybe a change in the way the businesses are seeing the role of a leader in terms of driving performance? Do you see maybe a retreat from this idea of more humane leadership to a more traditional authoritarian leadership? Do you see like we're going back in time a little bit, or what do you see?
No, I think it could be
Yeah.
temporarily. Sometimes things get worse before they get better, but I always think long term. And if we think long term, I think we have to realize that old systems are crumbling, which
Mm-hmm.
are based on level 4 or below command and control or toxic leadership. And sometimes things have to crumble and systems have to crumble. And I think this is what we are witnessing, so that we can co-create and rebuild new systems which will be more fit for humanity, which will be more humanized, compassionate, collaborative, purpose-driven, where we'll have communities coming together, working on some big projects, innovations. This is the only way forward to achieve a better world for humanity. And as I said, sometimes we may need some elements of level 3 for whatever reason, but I would say temporarily and use with caution. I wouldn't say to air traffic controllers, just experiment with ideas and relax rules and regulations. We are talking about people's lives. In manufacturing, you need to ensure quality. You need some elements of level 3. But overall speaking, if you talk about overall organizational culture, and it's very important that leaders operate from level 4, only occasionally from level 3, and the society. We may be seeing some elements of level 3 short term, but we need to look at the big picture. What do we want to achieve for the society moving forward in 5, 10, 20 years' time?
And my final question is, what would be your advice to someone who's listening? Let's say someone who working in a HR function or in an L&D function, for example, and they identify that their organization is perhaps operating at level two, very reluctant mindset, very kind of slow moving, just doing the basics, just turning up for work, and they see that they could do something, but they don't know how to start this conversation. First, what would you recommend that person to do, like to pitch this idea to their CEO, for example? And second, where would they start?
In terms of dealing with individual employee who is at level 2 in any circumstances, any organization, as a leader, we need to use the leadership style from one level of above. So we can't show up as level 4 leader if somebody is level 2. If somebody is at level 2, we need to show up as level 3 leader for the time being and give them tasks. So there is a big difference between at level 3 we give people tasks, which is more like micromanagement, and give them milestones, and then we monitor how they're performing and achieving those tasks. After a while, they will be comfortable with achieving those tasks. Then they will be ready to start going on this journey from level 3 to level 4. At that point, we can get to level 4 and start showing up as level 4 leaders and give them responsibilities instead of tasks. Because when we give responsibility to employees, we show them that we trust them, that they know how to do their work, and we just tell them, come back to me if you need any help, any support. I'm here, but I trust that you know how to do this work. And then make sure they have to collaborate with others. Level 4 is about at least 3 people collaborating. This is a true network. So these will be some of the strategies. There are many others, but just to give you an example, how would a HR person approach CEO? Well, maybe share some articles, some statistics. Well, we need to improve engagement, and to do that, we need to operate from level 4. And then
No, this is really, really interesting because I've seen situations where perhaps you have the more visionary CEO, perhaps who operates at level 5, and they're doing perhaps this really big pitch, big, visionary speech to the organization, and then you see the crowds just like kind of not just nodding, not really excited, and it's precisely what he just said, right? You can't really operate at level 5 and address the people at level 5 if they are operating at level 2, for example,
yeah,
right? Because that's that everything you say is going to end up landing on deaf ears in a way,
yes,
right?
yes,
That's so good. Very interesting.
absolutely. I posted a few posted on LinkedIn recently, just saying caterpillars do not understand butterfly language. So when people are stuck at lower levels, they understand caterpillar language.
Yeah.
They need to do the work to get to high levels to understand and to learn butterfly
Yeah.
language, which
Yeah.
then and spread their wings and fly and really thrive in all areas of their lives. But when they're stuck at lower levels, then some more work needs to be done.
This is really, really interesting. And on that note, I think we better end here today. Vlatka, it's been fascinating talking to you. Really, really enjoyed it, and I really learned a few things today. So definitely going to try to apply a few things.
Thank you.
What is the best way for people to connect with you and learn more about the work that you do?
There are lots of different ways. There is my company website, managementshiftsolutions.com. My personal website, vlatkahlupic.com. LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn regularly, so please feel free to connect on LinkedIn. You can message me through there. So I'm very easy to Google and to
Yeah.
connect with. That I have.
Excellent.
Thank you
Good.
so much.
Thank you so much for coming here this afternoon. And for everybody listening, I've been Tiago Kivi. And if you want to learn more about Headspring as well, our website is headspringexecutive.com. Thank you very much and see you next time.
Thank you again. Bye for now.